Hello and welcome to Fueling Around with me, Jason Plater, and the head on my Guinness, it's Dave Vitti.
Hello.
Fueling Around is powered by Adrian Flux. As the UK's largest specialist insurance broker, Adrian Flux will tailor a quote to your exact needs and help you save money on your car, your bike, or even your home insurance. Now then, head on my Guinness, Dave Vitti.
I was going to say, just be really careful how you introduce me there, because there is scope. We've done many of these episodes, and never once have we been in trouble with Ofcom, but I could just see potentially we could be getting into tricky water. I'm fine, thank you, Jason. Your hair looks nice today.
Well, that's very nice of you to notice. I'm doing a new thing. I'm doing fluff-free Fridays. It's going to start at 4:00. It's all the rage nowadays to do something on a Friday, isn't it?
So is this like a product-free
day? Fluff time Fridays.
Okay, no, it's nice. It's nice. And I would imagine it's good for the planet also, with less chemicals. Yeah, excellent. Well, we can perhaps talk about this subject area with our guest today, who I think will have much to contribute.
And I think he does have very smart hair too.
Me too. I've always said that.
Now, our guest today is a stand-up comedian, a TV presenter, and a radio presenter. He's done too many TV and radio shows to mention. And in fact, he's just done 2 months on tour across Ireland, more about that in a little while, and has now brought his borderline tour across the Irish Sea towards our direction. And he's here until July by the looks of it. It is, of course, the wonderful Mr. Patrick Kielty. Hello, mate. How are you?
I mean, boys, it's a bit early for Guinness Head and fluffing. I would have thought I would have thought that we were going to at least hang on into the first 15 minutes before we got to there. I'm deeply amused and quite like seeing Dave as the head of the Guinness.
Do you know what the thing is? It's been a few years since we've seen each other, Mr. Kielty, but I'm pleased that in all of that time, no advances in sophistication of humor or writing or anything has happened, and things are just as baseline as they were when we last saw each other.
I mean, you generally, if you set the baseline low, that's kind of the level that we work to. So, I mean, we can elevate this as high as you want, Dave.
Sure.
You can set this wherever you want, kid.
Now, listen, Mr. Kielty, agenda point 1, 2 months on tour across Ireland. You actually look, all things considered, very well and very healthy. And as somebody who once spent 5 nights touring across Ireland, I don't know how you've done that. Discuss.
Well, you see, essentially what happens, David, as you know, when you have small human beings in your life who are the ages of 4 and 6, essentially getting away on quote unquote tour. Right. It's just a series of mini break weekends for a middle-aged dad. Whenever you're looking after the kids, whenever you're in lockdown, whenever you're trying to, do the things that men of a certain age want to do, there's always a bedroom in the house where you pretend you're going to do emails, and that's essentially the dad nap room, right? I'm very busy. Okay. I mean, I'm telling Kat generally, right? She thinks that this podcast is 3 hours long because once we finish, there's a lovely little chair over there that I'm actually going to go and have a snooze in. So the idea of in a previous life going on tour and going, yeah, let's go on tour. We'll have beer and we'll stay up and no, it's like, where can I get a nice cooked breakfast? Where can I get a lie-in? It's, you take calls from the wife and she tells you what the kids are up to and how busy she is. And, you fake interest in these things and then have a little snooze and you go and you tell a few jokes in the evening and you pretend it's very hard work. Oh, it's very hard work.
See, now, by my reckoning, you've got another 6 years left of that. Mine are 12 and 14 now. And we're coming out of that little zone, but we're going into a whole lot of other areas.
Oh, it's really an area you don't want to go near. I've got a 15-year-old daughter, and it's a dark place.
Yeah.
So what I would say, Mr. Kielty, is enjoy every moment of 6 and 4. Those are beautiful ages with beautiful children who are interested in life and they have a positive energy. Enjoy that.
I see what you're saying. So basically, they're still at the age where they fake interest in their parents. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. Once you get to double figures, it's all downhill.
And it's a switch, isn't it? One day they wake up and they flick the off switch, and they want nothing to do with you. It's quite distressing.
I'm still in the camper van sweet spot with our two boys. Okay, during lockdown, I've always had a house in the little village that I'm from in County Down, and wanted to get back there. And during the lockdown thing, that you were allowed to travel, but did you really want to go on planes with them? And I rented a camper van. Right? They said, "Can we go to Ireland?" I said, "Yes, we can." Kat was in America. She was working. I put at that stage a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old in a camper van. I drove the 12 hours across England over to Holyhead, Dublin, up in. They now basically don't want any other holiday ever apart from a camper van with their dad.
I would love that, though.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, you see, you say that, the idea of taking these kids on a camper van holiday, it kind of works until maybe you get to Watford. By the time you reach the island of Anglesey, you're just throwing crisps and drinks behind them. They're fighting. I mean, like by the time we actually reached County Down, this camper van looked like the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. Right? It was just people were just trying to get off the beach. And so I kind of quite like the idea of them really wanting to hang out with me. But there sort of comes a point where you're going, can we take the camper van to Ireland again? No. The flights are back on. They take 50 minutes, and your mum is coming. We don't want mum to come, and we don't want a flight. We want you to take us in the van. Oh, so touring is relaxing compared to that.
So I wonder, has the new tour been less hair raising than those trips? Because it's obviously a tour with new material, isn't it?
It's totally new material. It's growing up where I grew up, which was about 10 miles from the Irish border. And I don't know whether you know this or not. There was a vote that took place in this country a number of years ago, and a proud island nation discovered they had a land border. Who knew?
Yeah.
And that land border in the proud island nation has proved to be quite tricky. So there's plenty to talk about on the tour. And what's lovely is, we started it in Ireland and we're sort of snaking around. We're doing our English states now. We're doing Scotland. And so all of that is absolutely fine. There's only one problem with this tour. And this is my gripe here at the minute. Does anybody else have to actually sell a kidney to rent a car these days? Right? Oh. The car, right. So essentially where I'm going, I'm renting cars everywhere. Okay. Right? I could essentially walk to these gigs and stay in, I could be staying in palatial hotels. I mean, someone recently got a quote for a car hire in Ireland for the summer, an American tourist. They wanted $10,000, right?
I know it's gone crazy, hasn't it? I mean, I just literally booked one the other day, but not here in Italy. And I kid you not, they wanted 250 quid a day for like a Citroen C3. And I'm like, what is that?
Right.
No, that can't be right. I'll check somewhere else. It's just gone mad.
Just buy a car for a couple of grand and then just leave it somewhere. It would be easier.
So here's the problem, right? You're living in London and you've got the congestion zone. You decide that you're going to buy a car which is electric and, we're being good for the environment. Then suddenly you're trying to do a tour across the UK and Ireland. That car's not going to work.
Yeah.
So you're then stuck. Not only are you selling the kidney to rent the car, you're driving a diesel, and I'm not going to lie, it's that's probably been the toughest part of this tour so far.
Oh, it's interesting you say that, because literally just 2 days ago I nearly fell off my chair. I couldn't, because I've not hired a car in ages. It's gone crazy, yeah.
Yeah, and so what they do is they basically during lockdown, all the car companies sold off their stock. right?
Yeah.
And they didn't get any more back. To the point, Dave, where I actually was in Liverpool last week, and I thought I'll take the train up, and I'll then rent a car in Liverpool, and I'll drive to my gig in Birmingham, and I'll drive back down to London. It dawned on me at 11 o'clock last Saturday morning that the only vehicle available in Liverpool to rent for 3 days for under £800 was a transit van.
Wow.
Right? Which had to be picked up at a B&Q car park, right? at some type of Hertz remote station. And I considered it. I'm not going to lie. I considered driving in the transit.
Absolutely. And also, I could have actually put you in touch. They have apps now where actually, if you have an empty load, you could have earned some money from there, actually taking some plywood or maybe like a lawnmower or something across the country, because you've got space there that needs to be utilized. I'm not even joking.
I'm going to make a note of that.
Yeah, we're all making a note of that. Suddenly this turns back into profit, Dave, on that information.
It reminds me a little of years ago. We were doing the radio show in Nottingham, and I was supposed to be finishing the radio show and then going to Newark to get on the main line to then go up to Edinburgh for a boys' weekend. And unfortunately, the night before I was due to travel, there were these huge storms, and it basically knocked down all of the West Coast and all of the East Coast train lines. So everybody was going for the flights. They were charging 400 quid for the flight. I thought, I'm not going to do that. The only option is a one-way deal on a car. I will go down to Avis or Hertz or whatever it is in Nottingham, and I will hire myself something that I can drop off at Edinburgh Airport. The only car that they had available, and I kid you not, was a light powder puff pink Fiat 500. Now, these, I would imagine, are excellent city cars. Small, maneuverable, easy to park, right? What they are not is comfortable long-distance cruisers.
Did you not like it then?
Oh, I thought I was in the wrong gear.
Tell us what you really think, Dave.
I kept trying to find like a higher gear. I was doing about 80 and
So it was the driving experience that put you off rather than the colour?
Well, it was a bit of both, because when I stopped at the services, I did have to park as far away as possible so as to not be associated with said vehicle.
It's really interesting, you know, the idea of that little Fiat 500. In your mind, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, you know, it's pink, it's jolly, you know, I'm heading down into Portofino, you know, it's that type of thing. There's just a difference between sort of driving through Portofino and Carlisle.
Yeah.
That's the problem with it, Dave, isn't it?
You're very right, because Portofino and Carlisle have never been twinned.
Never been twinned. Although I have to say, I mean, I used to have I had one of the first ones, a Fiat 500 Abarth.
Did you?
Now that's a good car.
Yeah.
No,
Little rocket ships, aren't they?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So that was the car after I had my DeLorean.
I was going to say, I only know one other person, and now I know two that have had a DeLorean. Explain why, when, where, all that stuff.
Yeah. So I thought to myself, I'd quite like to have something which is a little bit of history.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously built in Belfast.
Yeah.
You know, there's really only two things that have ever been made in Belfast. One is the DeLorean and the other is the Titanic.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So
both huge success stories.
I mean, you know, literally, there's a brilliant documentary about it actually, where if you want to buy a DeLorean, there's only two that you should really, you know, there's only two periods where you can buy them. They didn't make them for that long. So if you buy one of the first ones, they're brilliant. And the reason why they're brilliant is because they were so rubbish that when they actually got to America, they took them off the boat. They took one look at them and sent every car to the General Motors factory to have it rebuilt.
Is
right?
that true? Wow.
That is true, right?
Yeah.
So they're amazing. Okay. By the end of the production run, before John DeLorean decided to sort of do a giant Olympic slalom down a mountain of cocaine, the final right
Edit point.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think you'll find that's factually factually and
Yes.
legally correct.
Yeah.
So before John decided to basically get into the drug business to try to keep the car factory open, the final batch of cars, they'd worked out how to build them, and they were brilliant. The ones in the middle, terrible.
Not so good.
Not so good. So I thought to myself, I quite like one of these, and I ended up having to get the train to Derby, which I don't know if you know is twinned with Portofino. And so drove up, took the train to Derby, and I ended up meeting this guy, and there it was. And when you see them,
They're spectacular, aren't they?
when you see it for the first time,
Yeah.
right? And this was a proper collector that had it, and they basically shine them up with baby oil.
Do they?
Because it's naked aluminium, isn't it?
Yeah. So you basically have the naked aluminium. So this thing is just sitting there, and it's the full of your eye, and he's looking 12.5 grand for this car, and you're thinking, oh my God.
Yeah.
You feel like the smuggest person in the world that you're just going to, write this check, and you're going to drive off in this thing, and you do, and you turn out of the corner, and you get onto the main road, and you realize that you have wasted 12,500 right? I mean, this thing had, so because they were trying to build it so quickly, right? The whole thing was, like, as you guys know, a major car manufacturer, if they're going to try to build a car, it normally takes 7 years. And that's with all the technology and everything else. They built this in 2.5 years, from greenfield site to the first car coming off. It had Jaguar front brakes. It had Ford back brakes. It had a Renault. Remember the Renault Fuego?
Yes.
It had a Renault Fuego engine, right? They nicked the shape off Colin Chapman's Lotus. I mean, this thing it looked like the future and just drove like a transit van with marmalade wheels, right? But I do have to say, I have never owned a car in my life where people genuinely let you out in traffic. You pull up. Right. I mean, I used to, go for dinner, and you drive up the King's Road, and, you'd pull outside an Italian restaurant. Italian waiters are coming out going, no, this is it. Oh my God, this is a real thing. Right. So the love that you had, until you actually.
Please tell me you've still got it. Please tell me you've still got it.
Nick Mason talked me out of it. Nick Mason talked me out of it. Right. So. The brilliant thing about this aluminium is you think to yourself, this thing, you shine it up and it doesn't rust. That part of the car doesn't rust. Inside, underneath.
Yeah, the bit everything hangs off does.
Yeah. So basically, it started to rust from the inside out. And I didn't have a garage because I'm living in London. And I ended up sitting beside Nick Mason at a dinner one night. And I said, Nick, I got this car. I said, because should I be storing it? And he said, yeah, what sort of car is it? And the type of cars that Nick Mason has, right?
They're not DeLoreans, are they?
No, they're not. And so I said DeLorean, and he basically tried to keep a straight face. And yeah, right. And he said, look, to be honest with you, he said, to store a car, sort of 3 grand, 4 grand a year to store it properly. This car isn't going up by that amount. You should probably get rid of it. I don't really see any future in this car. So I took Nick Mason's advice, right? Sold the car. I think I sold it for like 17 grand. I think I sold it for.
Oh, so more than you paid for it.
Yeah. And I got about sort of 3 years driving out of it. Cut to, right? I see a website. I just occasionally go on again, right? Just to sort of get. I wonder, what the car that I used to have, I bought out of Stoke, is now in Australia and was actually on sale. I think it was 18 months ago on sale in Australia for I think it was 63,000 Australian dollars. I'm going, doo!
Wow.
Yes.
Well, you know, who's to know? No one really knows what's going to happen with cars, unless, of course, you're buying stuff that Nick does, and then it's gilt edge, then, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, as we know, there's only 3 things that are sold by dealers, and that is cars, antiques, and drugs. Because they're all crooks.
They're writing that down. That is definitely. Every time I use that, I'll copyright you, obviously, and I'll send the check.
You can have that.
Paddy, let's rewind then. So I'm kind of thinking that's probably in the middle of your automotive history. Go back to the start. What's the first car then? What's your first set of wheels?
First car was a baby poo brown Renault 18 with a leaking sunroof from Paul McKibben Motors, 4 miles down the road from Dundrum. Yeah, so me and my brother, we got that.
And shared it, did you?
Yeah, we shared that car. He was a year older than me. I mean, it leaked everywhere. You know,
it's not a looker, is it? That car, the 18.
No,
it's not a looker.
4-door though, 4-door, and no headrests, of course. I mean,
do you remember cars without headrests? What was that about?
Look, hang on. You're talking about cars with no headrests. I mean, I remember cars with no seatbelts. I mean, I remember driving to Wexford in the 1970s, right? We used to go down to see the family in Wexford, you know, and my dad had this Datsun, a 4-door Datsun, right? And talking about cars that rust from the inside out. He would have been sitting on the driver's seat, just weaving in and out of the road to Dublin, sort of at a consistent sort of 80 to 90, like a kind of a Jimmy McRae, just weaving in and out, right? Okay, my mum, no seatbelt. She'd be sitting on the passenger seat, you know, just happily listening to Tammy Wynette on the stereo, no seatbelt.
Yeah.
I was sitting on the armrest, 6 years of age, in between the 2 seats, changing the gears.
Yeah,
right.
Wow.
I mean, like zeros were given back then, right? You know, you had, you know, every window in the car was tight up to the top. 2 of them chain smoking away. Right? Like,
good old days, you see.
Inside of the car looked like stars in your eyes, right? And it was like, it's like, and you're sitting going, you know, that's how we live. So like the no headrest thing. I mean,
But do you remember? I think it was Volvos that always looked different by virtue of the fact that they had headrests, like way before anybody else, because normal cars didn't. And it was a bit like, what are these crazy kind of safety seats that the Swedish cars have? Because they have things whereby if you're in a high impact accident, they have actually things to stop you breaking your neck.
Right. So my dad had a 240 Volvo Estate. Right, which when that thing turned up, I mean, in our village, that, as you say, Dave, that just looked like the future. You had these headrests, which were, remember the headrests in the Volvos were like black, like a almost, they were almost looked like a sort of a Venetian blind type thing in black rubber. And it had the fold up seat in the boot as to the two kids. So,
sitting sideways.
No, not sideways. So it actually looked out the back window.
Oh, so to go that way. Wow.
Yeah, it looked that way. So me and my brother, we used to sit in there, and but I mean, it was the idea of any type of, you know, seatbelt, car safety. I mean, it's like, you know, like all of these things, you know, and it was Ireland in the 1970s. I mean, the idea, like silly stuff, like I mean, I remember, you know, roadworks will begin in 2 weeks. No, that never happened. Temporary traffic lights, that never happened. Right? I mean, they used to take the road up and there weren't even any barriers, right? It was just like, remember when you just sort of woke up in the countryside and it was just like, whoa, there's a hole. And, you know, normally the guy digging the road was the guy just waving people over the blind hill as he was digging. You know, come on, what are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? So it was different times, lads, different times.
Hey, so what came after the Renault 18 then?
So there was a Renault 18. Then... after the Renault 18 was my mum. I ended up driving my mum's. She had a small Volvo. Was it a 360?
Yes. The little hatchback.
Do you remember
Volvo.
those?
Yeah, and they looked like the future when they first came out, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they were particularly popular with the elderly
And architects.
Yes,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. So that car lasted until I managed to crash that into a British Army checkpoint on the outskirts of our village.
No way. No way.
Right, 6 months after I got my test.
Ouch.
lads, you've no idea. So basically, what used to happen is in the deep, dark, distant past in Northern Ireland, when you had these army checkpoints, and what they do is country roads, and they had 2 armored plated Land Rovers. They'd pull them across the road. Someone would then go 100 yards up. A soldier would go 100 yards up. He would have a sign, and it says checkpoint stop. At night, he would have a torch. Yeah. Okay, so I'm coming back one night from watching Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure on VHS. From Breeda McKibben's house, just up the road, and the lads in the army decided that they would just pull the 2 Land Rovers across the country road. Normally at night they drop the guy off at the start, and he does the light. And the sign, and then they go further up the road and pull the 2. But I don't know what happened that night. They just decided that they would pull the 2 Land Rovers across first, and then send this guy walking up to do the light. Now, all this is happening in slow motion whenever you recall it, and you're thinking to yourself, "What is that? Is that a drunk just out walking there at the side of the, or is that a cow, or is that a whoa? Hang on here!" And you just throw on every anchor you have.
Yeah.
And
did you smack into them?
Oh no. So if you kind of want to do the ultimate crash test, it is, does the safety in a Volvo protect you from an armored plated British Army Land Rover? So turns out it doesn't. And right. So my Volvo is totaled. God love these soldiers. They're jumping out over the bonnet, right, as I hit right now. And you know that thing, I'm sure, when you have a crash, you know that thing where it goes quiet and you think to yourself, "Oh, I'm here.
Maybe.
I'm alive. I'm in
yeah.
I'm okay."
Yeah.
Can you imagine the false dawn of actually, I'm okay, and then all you hear is, right? And you've got 12 petrified, kids the same age as you, right? Soldiers crapping themselves, thinking that some guy is trying to, run into a checkpoint. And I'm going, "Guys, where were the lights? Where were the lights? Where were the?" And then they suddenly realize that "where were the lights" kind of isn't some type of
code word.
Yeah, it isn't a code word. And they then they start looking a bit sheepish, and then the police came out, and we had a chat about that. And you kind of know that it wasn't your fault when it's decided everybody should maybe just fix their own vehicles here, I think. Right? I think everybody should just fix. What do you think? Yeah, I think that's quite good. Everyone should just fix their own vehicles, and we'll all just go home. And I'm looking at my Maz 360 Volvo, totaled, right? And this tiny dent, right, in the bumper of this armored plated Land Rover, and you go,
buff it out.
Yeah, that'll knock out.
Yeah, that'll knock out. Yeah, it's sort of. So let's just say they were able to sort theirs out with a bit of Isopon, and I completely wrote off my Maz car. So that was sort of car number 2.
And then where'd you go from that?
Where you go from there?
And what age, by the way, are you at this point? Are you early 20s, late teens, early 20s?
I'm early 20s at this stage, and this is the point where I started telling jokes, right? We started doing the comedy club, right? And we did a comedy club in Belfast, and everybody has graduated, and we're still living in the house together, and I'm been paid cash, right?
Nice.
So you're basically doing 2 or 3 stand-up gigs a week, and you're getting 150 quid a set, right? And you're flush, right? This is, so, but you're still living in student accommodation with a double cassette deck, right? Radio in the bedroom, right? And
so you can tape from one to the other. You can borrow your friend's, Queen Live Magic or whatever, and you can do your own slightly inferior copy of it for the car.
exactly, right? So, but in order to do that, Dave, you need a car. So I decide to walk into Bavarian garages in Belfast and buy myself a 316i white BMW, right? And it was like, well, it was secondhand, but it was like, it wasn't a car on the lot. It was a car that they had in the actual showroom. You could see nobody, I wasn't, nobody in Belfast knew who I was. So you could kind of see the salesperson going, who is this guy? No. And I said, so much is it? And he said, you know how much it was? And I said, okay, can I put a deposit down? And he could just see him thinking, and then he got the deposit. And it was, remember the, I loved that car. It had that, that blue, slightly velour-y upholstery inside. It had in the glove box, there was a little torch.
Ah, yes,
right?
there was. Was it a little rectangular shaped torch which would just kick into a battery charge?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
The dash on those was also blue, like a sort of blue plastic, but it was a different blue to the seats, interestingly, because the seats were lighter and the dash was darker.
Yes. So it had all of that. It had a Blapunk stereo.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had had the torch 6 months earlier, I wouldn't have crashed into the arm. So and I mean, I loved that car. I mean, that car, I had it for 3-4 years, and it was a classic, fur coat, no knickers buy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That idea that if you were turning up to do stand up and you were playing, like I was gigging anywhere I could get a gig at that stage, anywhere in Ireland. And so if you turned up with a decent set of wheels, people just assume, oh, he must be good. Doing.
Yeah.
Must be good. So, so that was the trick behind that one.
Are you a bit fast behind the wheel? Do you like a bit of speed?
So the next car I ended up in court in the next car.
That's an affirmative, Your Honour.
Is this going to go into a series whereby every other car is problematic? So the one before last actually put you straight into a checkpoint situation. This one took you to court. I can see where this is going. How did you end up in court?
Can you see that I should really have just stuck with the Renault 18? That's basically, so there was really only one car that would make me sell that BMW, and it came out, and I went, whoa. The Alfa Romeo GTV.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
The little red one.
Yeah.
Right. 2 doors. And you're thinking, oh my God, I'd never seen anything that looked like that in my life. Put the order in for it. Got it. People are going, you're mad. You're buying an Alfa Romeo. You're selling a BMW. What are you thinking? And so I ended up getting caught doing the highest recorded speed on a Northern Ireland road.
Wow.
Which at that stage was 132, I think. 132.
Wow. I mean, that's proper over the limit.
Well, it's nearly double.
That is what the judge said. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is what the judge actually said.
So is that a ban?
I'm surprised that's not nowadays. I reckon you'd do a little bit inside. I reckon for that nowadays, like nearly 140.
So this was this has to be now 25 years ago. We're still kind of talking pre-ceasefire Northern Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of kind of what was taking up court time. Sort of speeding kind of wasn't. So essentially what it was I actually got the car and I was driving it out the road, and it was a lovely summer's evening, and it was about 8 o'clock. There wasn't a car on the motorway. There wasn't that, like literally coming out of Belfast, and I just eased round this corner, and there was nothing there.
Yeah.
Right. And I had a straight in front of me, and I just kept putting my foot down. And I didn't really know how fast the car was. And I suddenly looked at what, so I was like, whoa, whoa. And there was a car behind me, right? And I'm thinking, what's he in? He must want to race, right? And turns out that was a police car, because
unmarked. Was it unmarked?
Always unmarked. Police cars were always unmarked in Northern Ireland. So that the idea of stupidity and new car and speed, and it was a hefty fine, and I just about got away with the books. You know.
Wow.
Yeah. A lesson learned, lads. A lesson learned.
Maybe. And this is interesting. As somebody who I believe was one of the early Top Gear celebrity lappies or lap people, is that we should have our own Top Gear leaderboard, maybe for speed issues and misdemeanors. But more about that maybe for the next series. Talk to us about that Top Gear thing, Paddy, because it's quite a sort of privileged position, is it not, to actually, certainly in those days, be welcomed onto the sofa?
It was a new thing, wasn't it? I mean, that idea, I mean, like the show had sort of caught fire in the UK, but not internationally. So therefore, people like me were still been asked to go on it. I think once it got to sort of the next series, you were having like A-list actors and stuff like that. I ended up breaking both cars.
Did you?
They had... Yeah.
Was this the first one? Was this the Liana, the first one, the blue one? Yeah.
Yes, the blue one. And I came round Gambon. I always feel you need to really use the full. People don't use enough of the track, right? And so
all of it and a bit more.
Yes, right. So it's that type of thing of just letting it just lie out a wee bit, right? And if you catch a tiny bit of grass, I mean, like you know, I ended up coming out over Gambon, and I saw something sort of head into the distance, right, out the side window, and it turned out it was the front right tire on the car, right? So I took so I broke the car, and they have a T car. They call it the T car. So they put me in the second car, and you know, you're at that point where you're thinking to yourself, maybe there's a bit less petrol in this car. Right, you're trying to wring out the last wee bit out of it. You're thinking, you're sort of starting to get into sort of loads of stuff. And then first lap in the T car, I stuffed it again, and just on Gambon, I went out too far, hit the same bump again. Car wasn't damaged, but then they stopped me and they just went, "Okay, we've got a time out of you here.
That'll do.
We don't want you to," so they wouldn't let me go again. But it's that thing of just, you know, there's always a bit more track than you think.
Yeah, and it was a cracking time. I mean, you did the same time as JK. I think it was a 1 minute 48 or something like that. Who's done a bit of racing actually?
Yeah,
so
it
was a great lap. And okay, the wheel came off after the lap. That's perfectly acceptable.
It's always looked like an awkward track, that to me, though. I don't know why. Maybe just from watching on the TV. I've never been to it. I've never driven it or anything. But it looks like the sort of track that doesn't really flow very well. You know, and things like Gambon's the last corner, isn't it? Where you sort of come round sort of left-hander and then over the line. And you sort of awkwardly scuffle over the line a lot of the time and sort of hit that bank.
So what they do is when you get out on the furthest part of the track, there's a slow right-hander which is purposely put at an angle which just slows people up. It's one of those ones where you're going right, then you're going left, and if you can go into the first part of it too quick, And then because the car's underpowered, you've got nothing left to get out. And so trying to get that wee bit of balance, it's really set up very well, that track, in order to stop people just trying to wring the neck out of it. There's a couple of wee tricks on it, which just, people who think they're fast will end up slow. You have to sort of think your way around it a wee bit.
I see. So it's actually for a track which is to be used by amateur drivers, actually it's quite cleverly constructed. So it's to have fast bits, but also bits where you've got to kind of come down.
100%. So what you've got is everybody that watches that show, everybody, right? And like my brother, my kid brother, he sells Ferraris. He works for Ferrari in Belfast, and he would his first car was the Vauxhall Cavalier SRI.
Nice.
Right. I was with him when the piston came out of the engine and went through the front. When we're coming back from Dublin one night on a remote stretch of the road, shall we say, and the piston came out the front wing, just and the end, and the right, just right out, and the cabin started filling up with smoke, and he had to pull it over. And he only had like third-party insurance, and I was just wetting myself laughing. He can drive, right? Like he would say to me, Paddy, you can't drive a nail into a pig's arse, and there's a hole for that, right?
I can't get rid of that image now. That's not good, though.
Right? Okay. So that's what. So he would say, I'm not a good driver, and he's quicker than me. But what's really funny is, you see that track. There's so many people that watch that show, and they think I can do that. And if you go on that track and try to give it the big one, you'll get caught out.
Well, and do you know what? That's like most race circuits, actually. If you don't know what you're doing and don't know the science and the technique behind it all, you just end up making mistakes, which will then make you go slower, and you'll be more stressed, and it'll be more dangerous, and all the rest of it. So I agree. It's a well constructed, good bit of road, actually.
Yeah, what's interesting about that, Jason, that to me, it seems to me that, okay, this might seem a stretch to some people, but racing cars, I think, is a little bit like stand-up, right? So what happens with stand-up is that if you're on stage and you sometimes go and see a comedian, you'll go and maybe see someone who's really very good, and people talk about they die on stage, or they say, I died or I killed them, right? It's hero or zero stuff, right? Laugh time is thinking time. So even like a ha, that's 3 seconds to work out where you're going next. Right? It's a massive amount of time. And so if you know what you're doing and you're getting the laughs and you've got the thinking time, then you can work out, am I going to go here? Am I going to go there? Am I going to go there? Right? And suddenly you get better, the gig gets better, the whole thing builds. If you're actually on a track and you get one corner wrong, right, then suddenly you're thinking, how the heck? So the dominoes just comes in, and the pressure comes in on you, and suddenly one small mistake, like if you're not getting a laugh, then you need to think quicker. And that's when you make a bad decision, because there is no laugh to help you. So the dominoes, it's the same game.
I can see that.
Yeah. Do you still get nervous, Paddy, on stage, or before going on stage, or?
What I do is there comes a point before every show where I try to make myself nervous.
What, to harness the energy? Is that what it is, or does it give you a little bit?
Just to focus the mind.
Okay.
The idea of actually walking on there and thinking you're going to nail it, and then if you haven't just thought of the first few little bits and pieces that you're going to do and how you're going to do it, you can sometimes, it's that thing of just, you haven't walked the track, I think you just have to, like, I don't know about you, Jason, like if you were racing, is there a point where you just have to put the head in a certain place?
Yeah, I mean, I have a routine, when I get in the car and things that I like to do. But we have this wonderful thing called a green flag lap. There's all this nonsense going on the grid, and there's people around, and then they clear the grid, and then we have a green flag lap, which is a slowish lap back to the grid again. So that's like 1.5 minutes. That's when I dial in, and that's when I can just get rid of everything and just tune up. Put the race face on, or whatever everyone calls it, and just think through what I need to do. And that's a really lovely time, actually, because that's when heart rate comes down and you're right, okay, and you plan it all out. And I guess that's or might be similar to you kind of waiting in the wings for your call to go on. And you know what, I've got a minute or two, and I think the nerves come before that. That's the good bit. Would I be right in that?
You mean when you get to the point where actually there's no way back? Does that make sense? It'd be like you're there then.
Well, what it is, it's that thing of there's really only one person that you're actually playing against, and that's yourself. Once you get into the wings, and it's just, here we go, right? And there is that little moment of calm where you're going, okay. It's quite nice to feel in charge, isn't it, at that stage?
It is. But you've got to be in the right frame of mind. You've got to be prepped. You've got to know what you know, and if you've done all your homework, and then it's a really great feeling, actually, and it sets you up. In a good place. I mean, I must say, knowing a couple of guys that stand on stage and do stuff, I can't think of any other situation where, God, you're exposed, aren't you? You're really as a person trying to make people laugh. God, to me, that feels, God Almighty, really stressful.
Well, what's funny about it is it's the equivalent of going out and playing a football match, but the ball is going to be at your feet from the off. Right? You don't have to worry about where am I, am I going to get a touch here? Am I going to, you can actually sit there and get your head absolutely in the place that you want to go, and you have done the best prep that you can possibly do for a race. Yeah. Some client comes up on the outside, or something happens, and you get stuff. There's only one person stuffing me, and that'll be me. So therefore, weirdly, you're thinking that's exposed. I'm sitting thinking there's less moving parts here.
Yeah, right. Interesting. So talk to me about the hecklers then. When they come in, in my mind, I would imagine that's quite enjoyable for you, because it allows you to think on your feet. And is that a good, do you enjoy that part of it, or does that?
I mean, that's always good, because if you're on a tour and you've got a show, most people that are coming to see you, right? Like it's I think it was Bob Monkhouse said the worst audience is the audience that doesn't pay. So that's why, like you sometimes read about comedians, going on their ass at a corporate, or, and they're really big names, and because the people are
not friendly forces, are they?
Yeah. So they're not invested in it. So that idea of, I think the heckle is something that you get in comedy clubs on the way up, because you may have people that like you or not. The type of heckles that you get when somebody comes to see you are normally them trying to shout out something funny, or back reference something. So the whole thing's much more playful.
I guess it's part of the overall mix, isn't it? In the same 100%. Way that if things happen on the night, I don't know, such as somebody might have got up halfway through and you've taken the piss out of them walking out to go for a wee halfway through or whatever. Let's wait till he comes back. Oh, here he is. What's his name? All those sort of things. So I guess those heckles are all part of that mix, which makes the gig in Limerick different from the gig in Donegal.
Yeah, I mean, it's all of that. The other night we had, we just played Basingstoke, and we were playing Winchester, and there was a guy shouted something out, and I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Basingstoke," and I says, "You do know I played Basingstoke 2 nights ago?" And he didn't know. He didn't know. Right? And he'd driven to Winchester, right? And so like just little things like that, which are just, every night is different, and so you've got your material, you've got your plan, but there's always a wee bit of a curveball, which is lovely.
Well, talking of Basingstoke, actually, it was in Basingstoke at the Anvil Theatre, I believe, many moons ago, where you were on tour and you were doing your stand-up. And myself and Mr. Chris Moores, who I was working with at the time, were running late. So we rang ahead and we said, we're going to miss the beginning of the show, Paddy. We're really sorry. And you said, don't worry, I'll wait for you.
Yeah, I'll wait for you. It's fine. It's fine.
I think Paddy went on about half an hour late to allow us to get there.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, we just decided, it was
Very giving performer.
It was one of those ones where you think, well, like, they're in the bar, they're having a pint, they'll be all right. It's like, you start, you stick the support act on, maybe sort of 10 minutes late, you have an extra 10 minutes for the interval. And, like that's the brilliant thing. I mean, the brilliant thing is there's very few moving parts on a stand-up tour, like the idea of, you see all these bands moving around and they've got kit and wagons and different things. It's just,
some lights and a microphone.
There you go, man. Yeah. It's like it's you and an overpriced hire car.
So tell me just a quick last one about that. Is your routine? Have you got a motorway routine, or have you got different on and off ramps that you can spear off depending on how it's going? If is there a strategy for that, or is it just you keep pulling it back to the motorway all the time?
So what you do is you will always especially on this show, because there's kind of a start, a middle, and end, and you've got an arc of a story that you're trying to tell and an arc of a period of time. So you'll always there's a few little trunk roads that you'll go off. There's very, very few comedians that don't have that, right? I mean, like I remember Lenny Henry telling me that he went to see Billy Connolly one night, and he went backstage to see him, and he goes, all right, Billy, where is it? And he goes, where's what? Where's the set list? He goes, Len, there's no set list. And he goes, no. Look, I know you've given that interview, Billy. I know you've said there's no, like, where's the fucking set list? Like, where's the set list? Right? He goes, Lenny, there's no set list. There's never been a set list. And so for him to do what he did, for the amount of years that he did, in the way that he did,
so that was all off the cuff, kind of, all stories in his head.
Was he had things that he wove together every night, and so rather than it being, the M1, he had different little villages all around, and he'd maybe decide, I'm going to connect these two. And he always used to do that brilliant thing where he'd go off at a tangent, and you thought that he'd forgotten the story that he was on. And he'd go, meanwhile, back in Basingstoke, right? And you would just, so there are, I mean, for me, that's why he's the GOAT. It's just, most people have a set list. That's how it works.
No, I'd agree with you. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's no surprise that so many comedians cite him as the master, and the person. If you could even get halfway to emulating, his craft, you're doing well.
100%.
Listen, the tour is ongoing until, is it July? Sort of that sort of time that you wrap up, I think?
Yeah, I think we wrap up sort of 2nd, 3rd of July. Yeah.
Something like that. So continued success on that. Paddy, we always finish with the same question, and we're going to put this to you to bring us back to the car theme. Myself and Jason always say music and motoring go well together. So we need your fantasy drive, please. Where are you? Where are you going? What are you listening to? And most importantly, what are you in?
What am I in? I would say I would like to be, we moved back from America, okay? And we basically packed up our entire life on FaceTime. We thought we were going to, so we thought we were coming back, okay?
Yeah.
And we were going to go back out, and we were going to sell the house, and we were going to pack up and say goodbye to the house in LA. Came back, lockdown, no vaccine at this stage, no international travel. We get an offer on the house. We decide to sell the house. We pack our possessions up on FaceTime. Now, if you can imagine trying to pack a house up with two kind of Californian Hispanic guys, right? That are going, Mr. Patrick, everything in this room, everything. I'm going, yeah, no, everything in that, everything in there. Yes, all of that. Don't look in there. Don't look in there. Right? So, right.
Oh my God.
Right. So we did. So this is what we did, right? And the thing that I ended up having to leave, and it is currently in storage, okay, right, is this that I bought at a, hang on, let me see, there it is.
Oh, man, look at that.
Oh, he's showing, sorry, for the audience,
that is a Jaguar 420, okay,
wow.
that they made for just for the American market, okay, 4.2 liter engine.
Yeah,
I bought it from a house clearance, right? Where they were selling, basically in America, when people die, right? They have an estate sale. So basically a month after old people die, you just go into their house and they just, like an auctioneer, just going through their possessions if the family don't want them. This was under boxes in a garage. And I said, is the car for sale? And the woman was clearly like in charge of paintings and cutlery and stuff. She had no idea how much the car was worth, right? I went back, quickly Googled it. The guy that owned that actually wrote The Sound of Music, right? So it had this, just down the hill. So it had this amazing stereo system in it. That car is still there. That is the only thing that we have left in America.
Other than the stuff in the box in the cupboard.
Yes. Other than that. Right. So it's so basically that has an 8-track. Right, you know the big 8-track cassettes.
Yes,
right?
Sergio Mendes. Here we come.
There you go. So I would say it's that car out of storage, driving down Pacific Coast Highway, right, listening to Neil Diamond's greatest hits. There you go.
Oh, mate.
It's an image, and it doesn't get better than that, Jason. And on that note, matey, I think you need to take us out.
Well, unfortunately, that's it for this week's Fueling Around, powered by Adrian Flux. As the UK's largest specialist insurance broker, Adrian Flux will tailor a quote to your exact needs and help you save your money on your car, your bike, or even your home insurance. Dave, as always, huge thanks to you. But, well, a stupendous round of applause to our very special guest this week, the one and only Mr. Patrick Kielty.
Coming soon to a theatre near you. Check local press for details. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us on Twitter at Jason Plato or at David Vitti. And if you've liked what you've heard, feel free to give us a 5-star rating, press the subscribe button, and share the podcast on all your socials.
Hey, Patrick, before I go, I live in Winchester. When's the next gig?
I mean, that's it. I mean, like I said, So the Theatre Royal in Winchester was a couple of nights ago, but I mean, you can do what the guy in Basingstoke does. I mean,
can you connect us up?
Like, I'll literally just give you a random city unconnected, and they can turn up there instead. Yeah,
brilliant. Anyway, look, thanks again, Patrick. We'll see you next week. Cheers now.